So which is it, right? Is there a loving creator with a plan? And if so, how is it that people are getting hit by drunk drivers and losing limbs? Or do we have free will and make choices and bad things happen? And it's both. This is the stuff that many year-long courses are made of spiritual philosophy of karma, spiritual philosophy of reincarnation, spiritual philosophy. This is literally, people do advanced degrees in these subjects. But in short, and in an overarching way, and particularly in a way that matters most to us, so not necessarily in the most esoterically philosophical way, but in the way that matters in our life. First, yes, there's absolutely a divine creator. For me personally, that the surety of that comes from three places. Number one, because people I really, really, really trust, whom I have grown to trust very, very deeply over my life, have had very personal experiences of knowing, whether it's past lives, whether it's direct connections of visions in this life of karma. So for me, that's one way. It's just when you've got people in your life you deeply trust. You can't listen to everybody. You've got a cold or a flu or a cough. If you listen to every single person who told you what to do, you would end up not only with a cold, but you'd end up insane. Seriously, you couldn't possibly take advice from even 10 people for something as simple as congestion and a cough. Then you think about something as big and important as my life. You choose who are the people. If it's an area that we don't know from personal experience, so okay, if I haven't had a personal experience of this loving creator, how do I know? Well, one way of knowing is if you happen to have people in your life whom you deeply trust, who have had personal experience, and say to you, here is what I know. It's the flip side of don't stick your finger in that socket. I've done that. I know what happens. If you trust the person, you're not going to stick your finger in the socket. For me, the second way of knowing is personal spiritual experience. I've had experiences of connecting to, being in the presence of the Creator. And it's an experience of nothing but love. So on a personal experience level, I've had that experience. And the third way that I know is science. Science is usually the greatest argument against a loving creator. But for me, having spent time in physics labs, in biology labs, in chemistry labs, where you know exactly what you're doing. The instructions are given to you exactly. You've got all of your tools in place. You've got all of the different elements that you're adding in, that you're titrating in. You've got your Bunsen burner. You turn it on. And despite knowing everything, despite thousands and thousands of years of probably unofficial study and at least hundreds of years of very official academic scientific study. We know. We know what things are made of. We know how molecules bind together. But despite knowing all of that, we still can't create life in a lab. The very best that our best top scientists have been able to do, sometimes in some labs a couple of times over the last decade, is clone. The best we can do is create something out, a mirror image, a Xerox copy. We cannot create a leaf or a mosquito. Despite botanists being able to tell you exactly how the leaf is made, exactly how much carbon, exactly how much hydrogen, exactly how much oxygen, how the molecules of carbon are bound together, they know it all. They could do it for you with styrofoam, but they can't actually make it. And so for me, science is actually another one of the greatest ways of knowing that there must be a planner. That doesn't mean the Big Bang didn't happen. It doesn't mean evolution didn't happen. They both happened. It simply means that there was and there is, a being, an energy, a wisdom, whatever we want to call it, who knew how the Big Bang was going to work. Who knew how this evolution thing was going to happen. So those for me, and all three of them are very personal ways. Those for me are the personal ways that I know there's a loving creator. It's not something I can prove to you. It's something that maybe all three or one of those three ways works for you. Or maybe there'll be other ways. In terms of free will, though, we definitely have free will. And this is where the law and the science of karma really gives it to us very, very specifically and very scientifically. There is this divine creator. We've been created whole and complete and perfect and divine. We've been given a body. We've been given a circumstance, a situation in which that body takes birth. Out of which womb, in which hospital or which home or which alleyway, in which city and what type of family and what type of culture with what type of opportunities. That's what you call our karmic package. But what we do with that is free will. Now, of course, karma plays a role in it. How intelligent I am. The type of sanskaras or ethics or values I'm going to get from my family are going to dictate how I think about things and therefore how I'm going to use my free will. So it's all interlinked and interlocked. It's not black or white. It's here's the divine plan, here's the creator, here's the law of karma, which is science. It's not God sitting up there, saying you've been good, you've been bad, here's your reward, here's your punishment. God has created the law of karma. Much like God has created the law of gravity. If you step off a building, you're going to plummet to the ground. Not because the creator isn't good. Not because the creator's against you, not because you've been selected against and the love of God, but because along with creation, God has given us laws. One of them is gravity. If you use your free will to step off a building, you will plummet to the ground. The law of gravity is there. If you plant an apple seed, you're going to get an apple tree. Law of karma. Actions and reactions. So in our lives, that which we're experiencing is a beautiful mix of a full karmic package from God knows how many lifetimes, from divine plan, divine creation, and how our free will interact with all of that. So right here, right now, we're all sitting here. We can't change that. You can't rewind your life and be drinking a cappuccino on the Champs-Élysées at this moment instead. I used to watch a show when I was young called Bewitched, and her daughter would, do this with her nose, and she'd be suddenly drinking a cappuccino on the Champs-Élysées or wherever she'd go. But we don't have that. We're here right now. It's the sum total of the divine creator's plan. You're here for a reason. It's not random. It's also the interaction of your karmic package. Clearly, somewhere along the line, you got an inclination towards spirituality, which is why you're here rather than drinking in a bar somewhere. Lots of people are drinking in lots of bars across the world right now. You're not. You're here. Somewhere along the line, you got that spiritual inclination. But you also did actions. You got yourself to India. For many of you, you got yourself to Rishikesh. If you were with us in Aarti, you walked up the steps from Aarti and came in. If you weren't in Aarti, you found your way in. You've sat down. You've done the actions. The sum total of all of that is why you're here. And yeah, there's a reason. But now you have free will. And what you do with the fact that you are here is up to you. You could walk out of here and walk into a bar. Not very close by. Rishikesh is a dry city, but you'd have to go a little ways. But you'd find one somewhere. You could go back to Delhi, you could book yourself a ticket, get on a plane, go to Paris, and in 10, 12, 15 hours be drinking a cappuccino. Or you could walk out of here and go sit on the banks of Ganga and meditate on what we're talking about. You could sit over dinner and talk about it with your loved ones. You could allow it to percolate in. You could decide to extend your stay in Rishikesh. Maybe you were supposed to, sightsee in a lot of places, but you've decided that being on the banks of Ganga is transforming you. That's your free will. But where you're going to be tomorrow and next week and next year is based on how you use your free will today. So that's not predetermined. Where you are right now, predetermined by that's which happened prior to this moment. Where you're going to be next week is being determined every minute and every moment by what you do right now. And that's where all of that intersects and interacts.